afternoon, and welcome to our Glendale City Council workshop. This meeting is for council members to review and discuss important issues, projects, and future council meeting agenda items. It's a work-study session only and allows the council to hear input from city staff. No action will be taken at this workshop, and there will not be an opportunity for public comment. This meeting is streaming live on Glendale's Facebook and YouTube pages and the city's cable television station, Glendale Channel 11. Thank you for joining us.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Glendale City Council Workshop Session, October 14, 2025. This meeting is called to order. I'm not going to conduct an attendance roll call because everybody's here, so if we'd make note of that. With that, Ms. Bauer, let's get into item number 1, if you would, please.
Presentation on the city's investment portfolio and market update.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today we're here to do an economic and market update as well as talk about our investment portfolio here at the City of Glendale. And with me today I have Megan Elgin, who is the controller for the city, and Ash Mehta, who works for PTMA and helps us do our investment portfolio here at the city. With that, I'll turn over the presentation to Megan.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Mayor and Council, our investment policy, it governs our investments of public monies governed by Arizona Revised Statute 35-323. This allows us to invest in different types of investments. Our maximum maturity is set at 5 years, and the investments that we're eligible to invest in are U.S. Treasury obligations, federal agency and instrumentality securities, federal government-sponsored entities like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, corporate bonds, prime commercial paper, and interest-bearing saving accounts, or CDs. Our investment policy objectives, per our investment policy, in order of priority, are listed up here, and our safety, which is to keep our public money safe, liquidity, which are when funds are available to use, diversification, which is spreading investments across different assets, and lastly, yield, which is the income an investment generates. For our investment strategy, we have 2 portfolios. One is a liquid portfolio, which focuses on short-term investments under a year and allow us to have more liquidity and also to manage to meet our cash flow needs and maximize short-term returns. Our other portfolio is the core portfolio, which is for investing up to 5 years, which is a longer term and is managed by PTMA to a benchmark following the city's investment policy. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Mehta to give the market update.
Thank you to the Mayor and Council for having me here. My name is Ash Mehta. I work for PTMA, which we do the investments for the city. We run, again, those 2 portfolios, a liquidity portfolio to meet short-term liquidity needs for projects that have already been assigned, and the core portfolio, which tends to hold the fund's debt service requirements by state statute. So the way we invest funds is based on what the Federal Reserve is projecting out for rates. And so what we do on this part of the presentation is discuss the economy as a whole, where rates are going, and what has been happening in the past. So on the screen here, we have what is called the GDP output chart. This measures a quarter-by-quarter changes of output by the entire United States. You can see that has been trending upwards over the last few quarters. Q1 of 2025, we saw a little bit of a pullback in output due to concerns about the tariff trade and what would happen if those tariffs were to take place. You can see a strong bounce back in the second quarter after the tariffs were modified or adjusted. So the U.S. economy expanded at an annualized rate of 3.8%, revised from the 3.3 number on the chart right now, which was driven largely by the U.S. consumer. They are really continuing to purchase goods in the face of economic uncertainty, which has helped the output of the economy. Consumer spending, again, increased at an upward 2.5% rate, which is the, providing that resilience that the economy has with all the tariff troubles. One of the other things that the Fed has to look at is strength in the labor market. If the labor market begins to show cracks, then the Fed has reasonings to begin to cut rates to stimulate the economy. The labor market did cool slightly further in August, with non-farm payrolls only advancing about 22,000, which is well below the consensus of about 97,000 jobs that were supposed to be produced in August. Downward revisions to the prior 2 months also shows that employment has contracted for the first time since 2020. So we're starting to see some cracks in the labor force as these tariffs and the economic slowdown potentially takes place. The chart on the screen now is the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve as well as the federal funds rate in the lighter green line across the board there. Now, what we can see here is over the last 3 to 4 years since the COVID stimulus in 19 to 21, we saw rates significantly increase to a level of about 5.25%. The portfolios for the city were benefactors of those rates, but as the economy began to slow down, which was the intention of those rate hikes, the administration has been pushing for more significant cuts to the Federal Reserve rate, which we did see in the beginning or at the end of September, where rates went from 4.5 to 4.25. So that is the first cut from the Federal Reserve since last year, and we are expecting 2 more cuts this year and potentially 3 more cuts next year, bringing that target Federal Reserve rate to 3.25%. One of the hindrances to the Fed cutting rates is what we have on the board here, which is the inflation rate charge over the last 10 years or so. We saw the spike of inflation during COVID, and we saw it significantly pull back in the subsequent years. However, it has been what they call pesky, where the Fed wants that rate to be closer to 2%, and we were trending that way. And now we are starting to trend away from that 2%, moving from a 3.1% rate closer to 3.6 as the revised numbers come in. So that is a opposite force to the cracks in the labor force when it comes to whether or not the rates are going to continue to. So if inflation stays persistent, that does not help the Fed try to cut rates. And we can see that in this graph here. This graph is a chart of the yield curve. The city typically invests in that 0 to 5 year, which is the inverted part of the curve and the left side of the screen. What this graph basically shows is since June of June of this year to current, we've seen a significant shift in the rate curve downwards, indicating that more rate cuts are to come, and the portfolio will also have a reduction in reinvestment. Are there any questions on the economic portion? Okay, again, so we're going to get to the portfolio review part of the presentation. As of June 30th, the current portfolio is $311 million. Last year, for the fiscal year, we had net income of $10 million over the size of the portfolio. We have a somewhat heavy asset allocation to government, and that is a function of the rate market at the time we were purchasing. Again, the government tends to be the safest, most secure investment that is available to us. Also, it was one of the highest yielding assets over the last couple of years, so we were able to allocate majority of the portfolio to that asset class. The entire portfolio is diversified, as well as diversified over liquidity and maturity dates. You can see the percentages of the portfolios here, and when they would become liquid and available to spend down if required. So fairly well diversified over 5 years. The liquidity portfolio, which again is for the near-term and short-term investments, is almost 100% in treasuries, because those, again, were the highest yielding assets we could purchase over the last few years. This portfolio of netted about $5 million in revenue for the year. So those were all the short-term rates. That was a great year for the portfolio. I don't think we're going to be seeing those types of returns in the future. It may be significantly about a percentage less. And again, because this is the shorter term portfolio, everything is under a year in maturity, and you can see they're staggered out into 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, and 9 to 12 month maturity buckets there. The core portfolio, which again is the larger portfolio and also the longer duration portfolio, which is able to be invested out to 5 years, is on the screen there. That portfolio also was able to return about $5 million a year, but those investments have been around for longer, so there are some older investments that are invested at lower rates. As those investments mature, they'll be reinvested at current market rates, which are typically higher than they have been. And you can see this in comparison to the liquidity portfolio. The assets are allocated again on the longer end of the curve in that 1 to 2, 3 to, and up to 4 to 5 year buckets. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you had more to go. Okay, I do have a couple questions for you. We've been averaging just under 3% on the investments. Is that correct?
In aggregate, yes.
And the way I think everybody, the soothsayer, everybody kind of looks at this in the future, we're going to be lucky if we can get 1.5 to 2.
That may have been, Mayor, in the past, that may have been the case. As of right now, the rates are in that 4 to 4.25 right now on investments.
In the next year?
In the next year, the rates are expected to drop to about 3.25. So nothing significant down to that 1.25%. I mean, again, that could happen if there was another pandemic or any sort of reason to cut rates, but without any sort of black swan event, rates are predicted to be in that 3 to 3.25 range by the end of next year.
And so with depreciation, or not depreciation, but
Inflation.
what I'm looking. You said something.
As the
Inflation.
Inflation, correct. With inflation, potentially we're looking at lucky if we can average 1.5%.
net of inflation, yes.
And you really can't do anything. We need interest to come down to spur the economy, but when it comes down, we can't make any money off of saving.
Correct.
Are we not allowed to invest into like S&P or anything like that? That's off because of legislation?
Correct, Mayor and Council. The statute for public investments in Arizona is pretty restrictive, thus that maximum maturity of 5 years. So we can't go out, we can't invest anything past 5 years, and then it's pretty specific to, heavily weighted to government agencies and treasuries. We are able to invest in some corporate bonds if they are under that 5-year mark, and then there's some credit, so they have to be investment grade. We can't go after kind of the lower graded bonds,
Right.
but we are fairly limited. Additionally, we do invest, so we have a bank account where when we're paying bills, we transfer the amount of the bills to be paid for the check runs that we issue. That's invested overnight through overnight repo account. We generate money off of that as well, based on the float on the time it takes from the check to be cut to the check to be cashed. So we do generate that. Last year, we generated about another $2.5 to $3 million on that account. So we look for other ways to invest our money as well.
Is there typically fees involved when we're buying and selling that take up a good portion of that or not?
No, Mayor, there's no fees associated with that. It's just like trading on the market, like you would trade in your personal portfolio.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Could you please walk me through the graph on slide 10 again? I just want to make sure I understand it. Yep, back up. There you go.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is the blue line is the yield curve. So if you were to buy at the time a 1-month security or a 6-month security or a 10-year security, the yield curve, that line shows you the rate equivalent that you would get. And so if you look at the top of it, the top line or at the left side, you'll see you're getting paid more in the short term than you are to invest money out, say 6 months. And that's a function of the current rate market. And that inversion has actually been in place for about 2 years now. That inversion is continuing because of that pesky inflation, and the Fed really can't cut rates ahead of inflation. So they have to wait for inflation to come down before they can cut the rates. So the market is telling us is that inflation is staying pretty sticky for the next couple months here, and in the future, potentially that'll drop. So we would be able to assuage that risk, but we're not going to get compensated for that.
So, thank you for that. So basically, this is a projection also out for 10, 10, 20, and 30 years, where the yield curve is not inflated.
The chart itself is showing what the current rates are.
Inverted, I meant, inverted,
Yeah,
not inflated.
So in the future, we do get, if we are investing longer than 2 years or 3 years, we are getting out of that inversion, and it's an upward sloping curve.
Okay.
But typically, you would not see that first part being elevated. It would be lower. So the typical yield curve would just be upward, not down and then up. So that's where the inversion is showing on this chart.
Okay, so the yield curve is still inverted, right?
Yes.
And is that typically one of the indicators of a recession?
Yes, in the past it has been. However, a lot of those old metrics of measuring the economy have kind of gone by the wayside.
But there's a lot of things but it's one of the things that economists have used in the past to indicate that there's a potential recession.
Correct. Basically, they're saying is that the future forecast for growth is lower, so the yields are lower.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council item of special interest, update on capital improvement fire station projects.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report is Glendale Fire Chief Ryan Freeberg. He'll be assisted by City Architect Eddie Garcia.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Thank you, City Manager Phelps. We'd just like to take a couple seconds to say thank you for your attendance last week at the Salute to Service. That meant a lot, not only to myself, but Chief Brandt. And just wanted to give you an update that after many years of not being in play, we have now reimagined the Citizens Academy for the fire department when we had our first class last week, 25 members attending. So I just want to give you a quick update on some things we're doing before we jump into this. And as Eddie's sitting next to me, if you have any questions specific to that, that's why we wanted to make sure we co-presented today. So for the items we want to discuss today, to walk us through the process of all these items for discussion today, exactly what we're talking about, the specific item, and then what are we working to address with the capital improvement project and the funding we get from the citizens through you into CIP. And then provide that methodology and considerations of how you do this type of work of siting fire stations, looking at the data, and how do you bring it to life to make that kind of data-driven, informed and data-driven decisions. And then the update on 24050, 19004, and 050, that are the nomenclature inside of our approved CIP budget. We'll go through each one of those. And then ultimately at the end, consensus and direction. So it's set up that you have a menu and a la carte at the end to see everything we're bringing forward after hearing all the materials the way it's set up today. So the top three big items for discussion today, on August 12, 2025, Mayor Wires requested a council item of special interest request on new fire station on Glendale Avenue west of Loop 101. April 22nd of 2025 at a city council workshop, there was conversation information about fire station 154 to relocate or renovate. And then finally, and we'll talk about renovate fire station 155, and we'll bring to bear why we're talking about that one today as well. So I put this slide in here to provide that snapshot of the public safety summary by project, specifically for the reason that there is carryover funding from last fiscal year. There is funding this fiscal year for these projects, and then substantial amount of money in the most near out years for our capital improvement projects. And in this it's your approved CIP from last year, and we're talking about $35 million of potential investment into our infrastructure, and we take that very serious. We're very mindful of the money appropriated to the fire department and working collaboratively. So these were the three snapshots of what we're bringing forward to talk about today. So specifically to start with Mayor Wyer's council item of special interest from August 12th of 2025. You see in the quotes, I wanted to make sure I captured exactly what the mayor said on that day and was able to go back and glean from the video the statement. I would like an update at the next council workshop. Thank you for your grace and getting it here today. On moving forward with the new fire station project on Glendale Avenue west of Loop 101 that has already been voter approved. And in this process with the council item, I met with the mayor to do our scoping discussion. And in that discussion, not only was there a focus on the Glendale Avenue west of Loop 101 fire station, but advocacy for the council to get more detail and information on those key CIP projects in the fire department. And that's how it's expanded into talking about the three we'll be talking about today. And then ultimately to develop the scoping document, which is in your council report. So what are we trying to address? What are we trying to bring to bear when we talk about funding in the fire department CIP to help public safety? So these four big bullets are what we identified as what are we trying to take care of with that funding. So the top one is obviously a continued approach to maximize use of approved CIP funds for the greatest impact to our residents. Want to maximize those dollars, make sure we're making good financial decisions, a conservative approach, bring to bear infrastructure that's going to serve not only the community but our neighbors, and do it in a very mindful and conservative way. Provide public safety infrastructure and response assets to serve the entertainment district and Glendale's growth west of the Loop 101. Rebalance and the distribution of incident response on Glendale's eastern border around our fire station 154. And improve existing fire station 155 fire station by modernizing the facility systems and aligning safety features to contemporary standards. And if you would put your mindset into your tour of the opening of fire station 153, that's what we mean by the modernizing to contemporary standards. And then what's the intent? Why have these assets where they're at? Back to that mindfulness of serving our residents is to provide that public safety infrastructure and response capabilities from the fire department, current and into the future, to serve as many City of Glendale residents, rooftops, roadways, and incidents as possible while augmenting the automatic aid system in an efficient and effective manner. I put the slide in there to ensure I was capturing what the voters voted on from the mayor's council item of special interest. So I went right to our website and pulled up Bond 2023 question number 2 projects. I've highlighted in yellow the three key projects we will be talking about today to match the snapshot of the CIP approved funding. And I highlighted in green one of the projects that have already been completed by the city. In addition, I would have highlighted green constructing new police evidence storage, but it wasn't done at the time I submitted this, but that would also be highlighted green as of today. I put this in here to ensure we look back to the conversations we had in a memo I delivered in June of 2024 when we hired our third-party consultant to come in and do a standards of coverage, which is a best practice of master planning for a fire department. And in that was recommendation 8, add a new fire station to serve the Westgate area in or around that Glendale Avenue and 99th Avenue. So I wanted to make sure we pointed back to money we'd spent on a consultant to bring those recommendations to support what we were talking about today. I wanted to, again, as we get here into the conversation, is walk down the history and the path to how Eddie and I are sitting here today. So March 5 of 2024, there was city council consensus to fund in fiscal 25 a design and engineering study for the selected fire station site. There was funding in fiscal 25 to the tune of $537,500 for that project. As you saw in your current approved CIP, there is funding in 27 and 28 for that project. In February 2025, we had a kickoff meeting with the City of Glendale team and the selected architect about this project. And then for the next 6 months, we went into programming with Glendale, the City of Glendale team and our architect. We had 6 or 7 meetings between February and August where there is a final draft report in August 2025 that Mr. Garcia has in draft form that I know he's moved through his chain of command that he can speak to more throughout today. And then we had the mayor's council item of special interest on August 12th, which gets us here today. I want to, as we talked about methodology and considerations, to provide the context and background of the lens by which I look through as your fire chief when doing this type of work. The Insurance Service Office and their fire suppression rating, which you would know as our ISO rating, we are an ISO 1, is a third-party assessment of your infrastructure. And that ISO 1 helps set your residential and commercial property rates. And inside that are benchmarks and tenets that you should and shall meet to get those types of scores. And today we're an ISO of 1. The Managing Fire and Emergency Services through the International City and County Manager Association is the collegial, by the book, how to do this type of work, guiding document, guiding procedure to how you dive into this type of data when you're providing infrastructure for a fire department.
Chief, if I could stop you for just a second.
Yes, sir.
When you said ISO 1, is that like a bond rating in the sense that the ISO 1, as far as people's insurance rates, would be better than if it was a different number? Does that have any bearing on that identification?
Mayor, members of council, that is correct. It's an ISO rating 1 through 10. 1 is the best you could have. So by that rating, you would be available for the best rates based on your residence or the commercial insurance that you're getting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The Commission on Fire Accreditation International, which is an accrediting body for the fire service, and we did the standards of cover, which again is a master plan for the fire department. We just updated ours in 2024. You've seen that document. National Fire Protection Association, NFPA 1710, really sets the performance and the metrics of what a high-performing fire department shall and should meet. Gives you guidance for assembling what's called an effective response force for the different types of hazards in our city and how do you get those response assets to that location. City of Glendale Engineering, obviously with Mr. Garcia sitting next to me, when you talk about procuring land, charters, requests for proposals, getting contracts, schematic design, all the way to opening a station as we saw most recently with 153, we work inside that process, we collaborate, we look at all the impacts to not only the engineering department, but all of our partners in the city. Data and GIS informed decisions, I'm gonna take 30 seconds to say, I have to say thank you to our senior systems analyst, David Getz, and our GIS specialist in IT, Jordan Baltera. Without the work they've done with our data to get the data into our servers, to do regression and predictive analysis and build the dashboards and be able to do the analytics, they are a partner in all this and a lot of the data that you see inside there. So I have to thank them because they have done great work, not only for me, but for the city. And then finally, I will offer this from an experiential perspective. So you can see the lens by which I look through with this. I've been blessed. I've had the opportunity as a young chief officer to be coached and mentored early in my career on this work. I was party to 3 fire stations. 2 of them were infill fire stations in very dense downtown areas and very established neighborhoods, and a relocation of a fire station into a park. Later, when it was my responsibility, the CIP for a fire department, Bond 2015, we had 4 different fire stations. One was a heavy remodel renovation, and then 3 stations, 2 of which were temporary for 20 years to site them for permanent location. One was private property, one was state land purchase, and then a relocation to a better location to serve the residents was an eminent domain situation. And then finally, in Bond 2019, before I had the privilege to come here, was a raise and rebuild of a training academy to a regional training academy, and again, another infill fire station in an already established area, and that fire station just opened recently in 2025. I say that to make sure you know your fire chief. I have this I've done this work so you see the lens I look through when you see some of the data further on. And on the right, you see not all the variables and considerations, but a sample of 10 of the variables by which you address, you model, you put into the dashboards, you put into the modeling software we have, and run these analysis and these predictive assumptions to make the best possible solution with the information you have. You've heard us talk about polygons, so I wanted, before we get into some of this granular detail, I wanted to just walk through polygons and how they're used. And you've heard me say on other occasions, you know, four-sided geometric shape. Well, it's more than that. This is how we use to start the planning for fire stations. From the singular fire station, it will demonstrate the capacity, the rooftops, the incidents, the square miles, the number of incidents, residents, all the layers of data you can put into that polygon as a single entity. That's your planning polygon. That's where you start. But in a multi-station system, which we are in Glendale and in the automatic aid system, you then take the nearest, closest fire stations and you start to build those planning polygons with them. And then you'll see where they start to share, and they have a shared overlap of coverage. That's where you then begin to look at how do you build the system. You would like the polygons to overlay, to barely touch, and avoid them being further apart from each other to impact response times. And then finally, when we talk about a 4-minute stitched polygon, that's really where you take the planning and you implement it and bring it to life inside our Phoenix Regional Dispatch Center in the automatic aid. What the stitching creates is the actual first due, which means that if an incident occurs in their first due by automatic aid closest unit, it's already predetermined they would go. So you go from the planning polygon to the shared overlap to stitched, which is how it gets implemented and dispatched out of our dispatch center. So those are the kind of the phases of how you use these types of polygons. So as we start talking about City of Glendale Fire Station coverage west of the Loop 101, what you see on the border of that is bordered in white is our City of Glendale general plan boundaries. And what you see in the gray polygon to the furthest right is Fire Station 158, which is our furthest west fire station at 83rd Avenue, just north of Bethany. That gives you an idea of the type of infrastructure we have currently in that part of our city. But we are an automatic aid partner, and we're a premier partner in the automatic aid system. And around our boundary to the north and south and out to the west, you see the Peoria Fire Department, Surprise Fire Department, Phoenix Fire Department, Goodyear, and Arizona Fire Medical Authority, and their polygons as supportive infrastructure for our fire department. But the polygons impinge into the boundaries, but as you can see denoted on the map, we still have areas that we do not cover with our own infrastructure. So how do you go about this work? How do you choose where the fire station is going to be sited? And you see 1510 on here, and I want to offer this, excuse me, for context of why are we calling it 1510. In the Metro Phoenix automatic aid system, each department is assigned a numerical assignment. The City of Glendale, one of the originators of the automatic aid system, our 2-digit numerical system is 15. Peoria is 19. Surprise is the 300. So 151, 152, we have stations 1 through 9. Our next station would be 1510. That's why it's called 1510. So as you see on your left, again, are kind of the steps you go through as you begin the work of working with engineering, looking at the 99th in Glendale was approximate location. You look to make a 1-mile radius and triangulate in those areas. You look at both public and private land. You look back to your methodology and considerations I talked about. You work through a process of elimination, and you're looking for the best possible choice with all the factors. And again, I put it in quote, the location is not only for today, but also for 30 years from now, that's the type of investment you're making. So working with city engineering, and Jamie Chapin at the time, who's no longer with the City of Glendale, great partner. We gave her these considerations and working with city engineering came back with these 6 sites, both public and private, for initial evaluation, to go through the methodology, to put into the modeling, to go through all the assumptions. And you go through a process of elimination. So we immediately went to sites 5 and 6, and and the location on the east side of the 101, their impacts in the modeling, we quickly moved to eliminate site 5 and 6. We then went to site 3, went through the same methodology, the same type of modeling. But the variable with site number 3 was our interest to minimize or eliminate recreating a 154 scenario with by constructing a fire station on our borders. We know that in this part of our city, we are very shallow north to south. We are very long east to west. So we eliminated site number 3. Then we looked at site number 2, which is on airport proper. And that site, city-owned, has a lot of FAA requirements, regulations. We also know there's unanswered questions for any development on the east side of the airport that has been discussed. We wanted to avoid any conflicts with site number 2, so we eliminated site number 2, which left us to site 1 and 4, both city-owned and both very viable options. The 4 variables for us that really drove us to recommending site number 1 at New River and Glendale were these 4. First was access onto Glendale. We know that we are east-west travel in this part of our city, so getting access onto the main thoroughfare was a priority. Number 2, when we talked about stitched polygons and creating first dues, this site creates Westgate, the stadium, Tanger, our entertainment district as a first due for Fire Station 1510. Third, the expansion of our ability to provide services as far west as we could, this takes us almost to the gate of Luke, was a third variable. But the tipping point in my recommendation, again, was minimizing or eliminating constructing fire stations nearer on borders. And site number 4 at 99th Avenue north of Glendale was closer to the border. So our recommendation for continued study and engineering was at the northwest corner of Glendale and New River. This is in the Yucca District. It's on the other side of the runway on city property, and this just gives you a kind of an overview of where it's located as it reflects to the Westgate, Peoria, our southern and northern border. As we zero in to give you a better highlight, it's outlined in teal or blue with a blue star. And on the right, you can have some statistics as how far from Westgate, Tanger, the stadium, our Fire Station 158, Luke Air Force Base, our partners, Peoria, which is 194, our partner in Phoenix, Fire Station 154. This is 8 acres. It's city-owned. We are really focused on the bottom third, the southern end of that site, for continued study and engineering. Polygon. So here you go into our first planning polygon. And you see an odd shape to a fully developed polygon, and I'll talk about that. But on the right, you'll talk about that over the last 3 years, this polygon has been responsible for an average of 17, almost 1,800 incidents. Last year, we are just under 1,900 incidents inside that polygon, the 20% increase since 2022. And our department, Glendale, has responded to 50% of those incidents. Now, we talk about population. In 2024, the population out there was 14,000, but we know that's a developing area. We know it's a growing area, but we also import visitors to our Westgate Stadium and Tangers area. We are all very familiar with the import of people into our entertainment district. We talked about rooftops, just under 1,400, and we talk about polygon risk. High-risk occupancies are those occupancies that would require an annual inspection, and there's about 144 of those in the polygon. Now, I want to touch on the shape. We've seen others that are fully built out in that more triangular polygon shape. This is because not all of the roadways are fully built out. So I would hearken back to, I think, 1995 when we opened Fire Station 156, when Arrowhead was just beginning, a couple of phases were done. There wasn't a 101, still some orange groves. And you fast forward 30 years and you look at the completed built-out infrastructure and how that polygon has changed. I would offer, as you look into not only today but 30 years from now, could Glen Harbor be built out? Could New River be built out north and south? Could the 101st Avenue be built out in your municipal planning? So we would be able to continue to develop that polygon, just to give you context as to the shape. So then we talked about the shared overlap before. On the north part of the polygon, that's our Peoria partner 194. To the right, or what would be the east, is Fire Station 158. And to the south is our Phoenix partner, Fire Station 54. in this, and I'll use a little bit of if the mouse will. When we look here in the polygon, that just under 3.8 square miles are serving inside the city of Glendale. We're only 1.4 outside the city of Glendale. And on the far right column, you look in that polygon today, there's 1,600 incidents where there was 151 outside. So again, the focus of that station would be serving inside the city of Glendale while augmenting our automatic aid system. And then there's your stitched polygon. And what's important to note about this is that the stitched polygon, the response coverage you see grows. For us, not only do we talk about our access onto Glendale to get east and west, we talked about establishing our northern border with our partner, City of Peoria, our southern border with Phoenix 154. And then you see how the stitch puts us first into the primary points of our entertainment district. Now, why that's important is that what bringing this infrastructure to bear is that it provides more availability and reliability for Fire Station 158 to respond to those calls in their area, which will beget better service in 152. As you become more available and reliable, that helps with response times. It also keeps Peoria and Phoenix more available and reliable in their areas, and we're growing out to the west. So that's how you take it from planned to implementation. So now I'd like to kick it over to Eddie for his city engineering perspective.
Thank you, Chief Freeberg. So as you see that we've seen all the data that supports the geography of what makes sense to all of us, and part of our role in engineering is also to not only help with that, but also understand the strategic planning behind it, how we get that implementation to a good start so that we use everything we've had from our experience building 153, our knowledge of the delivery methods that we have, and how do we pull all that together. So that data piece was really important, and to the Chief's point, this site is an interesting opportunity. Now, it's actually 8.2 acres of availability that we have as a property that's adjacent to the airport. But I think it's also important to test, and this is what our role was to do, is to test with a hired consultant the viability of using that site for this purpose. So proceeding to this next slide, we need to do some due diligence on the site in general. Now, for the geography itself, the topography, it's just basically rolling terrain. It's been the same for a number of years, and especially in the last 20 years or so, there's been some new activity. But prior to that, as far back as the late 40s, the site itself, in terms of the topography, has been relatively the same. We did look at things like the soil conditions. They're very suitable for a building of this type. And we also looked at anything that could create, either from a seismic standpoint, fissures from water that's been either removed over the years or anything of that matter that could affect the stability of the site. And we didn't see any of that, so that was a good thing. So those are some of the things you can kind of see by looking at it. But what you can't necessarily see, and something's very important more than anything else, is that we have to follow, because of its location of the airport, the FFA rules for building adjacent to that. So what you're seeing in the far left graphic is essentially the height restrictions, if you will, or the building limitations for height within that landing zone. So the good news is that the parcel land that's in play has the ability to accommodate the heights that we need. And they vary from left to right. The farthest left is the lower heights because it's closer to the flight path into the runway. The further east you get from that point, the higher you can get. So our buildings typically, in this case, we're under 30 feet max, even with a flagpole and even antenna. So well below what will be for this site. So that's a good thing. The other thing is we have some opportunities to connect to utilities that already exist. They need to expand. We will need to connect to our pads, but it's there: sewer, water, gas, fiber, etc. The center photo will show you, or the graphic in the middle shows the buildable area. So the yellow portions are where the terrain is a little bit more in our favor. And there's sort of, it's bifurcated by this little center drainage component that you see there. So for us, knowing that we need about, out of that 8.5 acres or so, we need at least half of that for building our project. And we looked more towards the southern end of that site to accomplish that. And so that yellow pad that you see there along that sort of purple linear line that goes north to south essentially is where we would suggest to build 1510. And then the bottom graphic, just for your knowledge, is just to show you the topography in sections, so you can get a sense of how hilly it is in its natural state. Some of it might have had some spoils from the 2 industrial projects that were there before, but for the most part, the terrain is what it is. So outside of those things that we just mentioned, things that you can see and the things that you don't necessarily see right up front, the site is viable. So it is very useful for this particular application, and especially knowing the location and how important it is. Moving forward, looking at how we would place a building on that yellow pad that I just mentioned, we look very carefully at the circulation. We have an area of a building that's essentially very similar to the 153 model. But in this case, we also wanted to look at how the topography would affect the entry and egress for the apparatus. And it's clearly in an advantage. It's just right off the intersection of New River and Glendale Avenue. You can see where it's essentially a counterclockwise loop between vehicles coming in, circulating through the app bay, and then whether it be visitors or even employees, they can come in through the southern entrance and then to the back. The other thing we want to consider on this particular project, due to its location in essentially the region it's going to serve west of the 101, is potentially adding a resource structure for different fire resource equipment, whether it's a trailer or other equipment, an engine, et cetera, that can be placed and protected from the weather, and then potentially a fuel station. Again, these are things that were talked about in programming, but not necessarily guaranteed at this time, but we wanted to see if they would fit on this site. And the answer is yes, they would.
Eddie, let me stop you for just a second. The map doesn't show it, but if I remember correctly, the red color at the bottom of the screen, that's essentially would be Glendale Avenue running east and west, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Glendale Avenue east and west.
Anybody watching it on TV or something, the map doesn't show Glendale Avenue, but in essence, that would be Glendale.
Mayor?
Question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Since we're paused here, have we already done as part of the, I was going to go back to the dates, with the meetings and the discussions, have they done soil inspections and all of that before we get too far down the road, or do we do that before we construct a building?
Mayor, Council Vice Mayor Tomilchoff, yes, this report that we had also had a soils geotechnical report. And this is, we had about 3 borings that were done to get a feeling for the quality of the soils. Again, this is where we learned whether there was any subsidence, any fissures, typical soils that you would see in this area. Nothing was a red flag. Bearing capacities were there. Of course, this is just very early. I mean, we may even ask for more borings depending on the final design once we move forward. But as a due diligence study to get an understanding of what's there from a utility standpoint, geotechnical standpoint, in case of, in this particular case, the FAA, we wanted to understand those restrictions in advance to say what's really possible. So
Very
yes,
good.
there was a geotech report.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, so this diagram it's a blocking diagram of, it's not meant to be an exact floor plan by any means, but it's to show you that once we understand the site constraints and what we think we can do from a placement, this is how the building potentially would work functionally. So this follows the chassis, and this is a term that the chief and I have developed over the last couple of years working on 153, is that we wanted a model that would be expandable or contractible depending on the apparatus bay number and the number of employees that would be residing in the facility. And it comes down to sort of 3 things in terms of the safety of our occupants, our firefighters, and that is red, yellow, green. The green meaning the most safe areas where we've actually separated any of the potential carcinogens or any of the pathogens or things like that that come with fighting fires or being in the field, getting into the livable areas. And then that sort of yellow zone, which is that area where we go through our decontamination and so forth, where we separate those boundaries very careful from the green. So from left to right, what you're seeing is the work and personal or living spaces. And then the red is the apparatus bay, and then the 2 saddlebags in yellow are essentially the support functions that act as that transition. The difference between this building and 153 is that there's just more occupants on the living side. So there's 10 dorms in this case versus the 10 and 12 that we've had before. So essentially, It requires a little bit more space to do this, so we're growing about another 6,000 to 7,000 square feet from the 153 model, but that's due to the size of this facility. Next. So how does this translate to approachability, visibility from Glendale Avenue? The site does give us that opportunity to do that. So if we orient the building north to south, the apparatus bays being directly parallel to New River, you can see in the front, even with the terrain and the hilly terrain that you see here, that we still get a lot of great opportunities for visibility from the corner. We know what it is. It's great access to the intersection. This gives you a sense of scale and the fact that even with the rolling terrain, there will be a certain amount of cut and fill associated with a project like this. But as you go to the next slide, the aerials will give you a little bit of a feeling for how that works. You can see that the building could be essentially placed on a pad, but there will be some moments where we feel that we're going to have to reroute some of the drainage to go around the building itself. And then in some cases, the building will be tucked into a hill. Other cases, the hills will be exploded. So it's somewhat like a split level pad, but nothing that we can't overcome from an infrastructure standpoint. And then the other aerial just shows you a different view from behind looking towards the southeast. So again, lots of room to maneuver the apparatus around. Potential, which in the foreground you see here is a potential resource shed. And then, should we desire a fuel station, something that we can accommodate.
Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. We're the same direction, not
Both
sure.
of you are asking. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Mr. Garcia, what is that detached building or I guess it's a covered, it's not completely enclosed, but what is that?
Mayor and Council, Vice Mayor Talmachoff, that's the resource structure shed, if you will. So if we have other equipment that the fire team has, whether it be another vehicle, resource like equipment like a trailer, a couple other items, Chief, you might want to add, but essentially it's a covered shed, essentially where you can park those vehicles or park that equipment there safely. And then that essentially is a home base for this side of the 101, where if we need additional equipment, we can pull it from here.
Okay. And for storage of equipment that maybe is not ever for everyday use?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is that road right there under the word aerial, is that Glendale?
Mayor, Council member, yes, that's Glendale.
Okay, so it's not actually facing Glendale?
No, it is actually just off the intersection of New River and Glendale.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But in the previous slide, it was showing that the entrance to both the public side and the fire side very much can be seen from Glendale Avenue.
But it's not facing Glendale Avenue, okay.
Mayor,
All right.
Council, I also want to mention too that this is just a concept. This is not an actual final design. This was to prove that the idea could work, or at least the planning elements that we've established from 153 and how we would adopt it to a site like this can work. So we would go through a full design process once this was, fully implemented to get started.
So there's no reason to not have it facing Glendale? There's no reason why it couldn't be facing Glendale?
No, there's no reason it couldn't be facing Glendale.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, actually, let me clarify that, Council Member, Mayor and Council. So the length of this does, because of the apparatus bay, if you're seeing it, how visible it is from Glendale, the apparatus bay works best in this configuration. So it is parallel to New River. But the lobby and the front door area essentially would be seen from that corner to at least signify that that's where the entrance is.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. To that point, do we anticipate the construction of anything between this fire station and Glendale Avenue?
Mayor, Council, Councilmember Turner, I'm aware of anything like that. I mean, you're very close to, this property is so closely located to that intersection. It's I don't know exactly how many feet away, but there's not a lot of room for another building to be placed on that edge.
A convenience store or anything along those, I mean, it's land that we own. I just wonder whether there's potential use for the remainder parcel.
You're talking, Mayor and Council, to Councilmember Attorney, you're talking about the other yellow pad that's just north of this?
No, I was thinking more on the Glendale Avenue side, but it's not a sticking point for me. I just was wondering if there was a remainder piece there that could be marketable or anything like that.
Mayor, Council, Councilmember Turner, we did not include that as part of the study or as an opportunity, given the nature of what we were scheduling to do with the fire station and how to accommodate that. There's not a ton of room there, but if it's something we need to explore, we can look at that.
Okay. Yeah, I might be a little premature with that question until we actually get site plan and things like that, but just looking out for the taxpayers, if there's a remainder parcel there that is marketable, then it might be worth doing. My more pertinent question is New River Road chokes down right here where the fire station is going to be constructed, and then it goes north from there up into the industrial area. And when I went out there and toured the site, it gets pretty rough, almost four-wheel drive. But so are we anticipating the city having to, will we be improving New River Road north of the fire station? Will it be used to access, will it be used to access the area to the north, or will everything come down to Glendale Avenue? All the
Mayor, Council,
traffic.
Councilmember Turner, to be determined. This study took it as far as what the road could bring and infrastructure-wise to the southern pad at the moment. But I think it's one of those opportunities in design, if we want to look at the entire infrastructure of that parcel from north to south, that we look at it then.
Just looking at it on Google Earth, there's really quite a bit of industrial, it looks like, and heavy commercial use to the north along New River Road there that just trying to anticipate the secondary costs. Building the station is one thing, and then what else do we have to do to make it as usable as possible? Kind of the Ballpark Boulevard conundrum. Thank you.
I do have one question, sort of a follow-up with Mr. Turner's thoughts. Is there any thought as far as doing what some of the stations have, where you have a signal that's activated by the station to stop Glendale's traffic so the fire apparatus can get out without being blocked or impeded?
Mayor, Council, we did have a brief dialogue about how to handle the control at that intersection. It was not fully determined yet what system we would use for that just yet, but it would be something that we would definitely explore and design further, but do believe that we would have to do something at that intersection.
Well, and as we continue to grow, and we will continue to grow, I only see in the future that Glendale is just going to get busier and busier, which really emphasizes the need for the fire station, but we also need the fire station to be able to get out safely too. So I'm glad that you're talking about that. I had a very long conversation with the chief a week or so ago. Very impressed on his knowledge, his past history with stations and location, and I'm in full support of this project. I mean, complete full support. I don't know what else you have to present right at the moment. I did have one other question, by the way. I'm sorry. Is there any intentions about locating a brush truck at that station because of the proximity with the river bottoms and that whole western area?
Mayor, members, the council, I will be addressing that here in the next couple slides if you want me to pick it up from there.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you, Eddie. So as we get to impacts and considerations to the general fund, as Eddie laid out, the 4-bay, 12-bunk, from the mindset of original concept before anything final determination to ensure that the fire station could handle, obviously, an all hazards fire truck, fire engine. The consideration for a Type 6, as we'll talk here, a brush truck. 20 to 30 years from now, if you get into the conversation of ambulances, and then we'll talk about airport rescue firefighting. So it started off from there, again, to begin the conversations to why we got to that 4-bay, 12-bunk. But as you look here and we talk about what building the fire station and the capital improvement project funding, and we move into what could impact the general fund ongoing. So a new fire station needs new employees. One fire engine, we would need to hire 15 new full-time employees, and that year one salary with an asterisk based on today, based on the realities of our salary for our firefighters, engineers, and captains, which would be at a step 2 when they came out of the recruit academy, would be approximately $1.5 million. Now, I put in there SAFER grant, which is through the Department of Homeland Security through FEMA. Federal realities right now with grant opportunities are what they are, but there is that opportunity to apply for those SAFER grants to offset some of the costs the first 3 years. Ongoing salary increase, we would need to promote 3 current City of Glendale employees that are eligible to promote to captain, and we need to promote 3 current employees eligible to promote to engineer as part of this hiring. So that number on the right is the total to promote the 3 captains and the total to promote 3 engineers. So at a minimum, again with the asterisk, you're at $1.7 million ongoing to the general fund to hire personnel for this fire truck. And understanding getting to the top of range and moving through their steps, 2.2 million fully realized, again, based on today's predictors. But I don't want to be remiss to say that there isn't an ongoing impact to the general fund. On the right hand, you see we would need authorization to add and order a new fire engine for Fire Station 1510. As if you've seen out in the news, the realities of fire trucks, the current price for our fire engine, $1.5 million, and it takes 30-month lead time from the time you order. Again, great partnership with Michelle and her team and Craig Croner, but that is the reality of buying fire trucks. I would ask that you consider authorizing to add and order a new brush truck. Because of this part of our city, we have more risk with wildfire in the urban interface. We're doing great work with our community risk reduction, fuel mitigation strategies. We're doing our part. But similar to Fire Station 156 up by Arrowhead, that has a brush truck, we would like you to consider adding that asset to a 1510 for the western response. And you see there, one time 400,000 and 30-month lead time as well. And then finally, I think there at least put the marker down that there would need to be a conversation about providing airport rescue firefighting ARF services out of Fire Station 1510 to serve the airport if that came available in the future years. But I just want to make sure we talked about that today, again, to tie to why we were asking for 4 bays.
Mayor, thank you so much. I was able to tour a fire station on Deer Valley and 69th Avenue where we have the current brush truck, and I definitely support this because the analogy was made that I usually get the iPhone after many years afterwards, and that this one, although the new technology is at the 16, that this brush truck might be the iPhone 6. And so definitely need for another brush truck. And then just to clarify, how many do we have currently?
Mayor, members of council, councilmember Conchas, we have the one current brush truck that has hose and a pump and can deploy 4x4 out into that terrain. We have one assigned to Fire Station 156.
Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. So would this station be able to accommodate at some time in the future an MR unit there as well? Maybe we don't need it, in the beginning, but depending on, it's going to be by far the furthest west station we have in a high density area. So,
Mayor, members of council, Vice Mayor Tomilchov, that would be my interest. We have worked hard, Eddie and I, in building this chassis that we are fans of deeper bays to accommodate stacking trucks. That's usually your most affordable place in building fire stations is in the bay. So we like longer, deeper fire apparatus bays. So yes, it would be able to accommodate an MR unit.
okay, thank you.
And one more question for myself. The proximity to the airport, I've actually, most people know that I fly out of there. I've been out there on 2 occasions where I actually witnessed airplanes crash. So with the close proximity, and I'm happy to see a station in that area. I'm really glad that you guys put so much thought into this. But would the northern end of the runway, would that have crash gates on it where you could respond quicker than trying to drive all the way around here and going through a controlled gate? Just a question.
Mayor, members of council, that we would be bringing all that to bear in the design. There's currently a gate on the southeast corner that is Knox box controlled. We would work with transportation and the airport folks as to what would be the best accessed opportunity for us to come across the street. That would, again, would go into continued planning.
Okay.
So with that, I'll transition, and I appreciate us going through this to discuss the 19044 Fire Station 154. Again, if you look back, April 22, 2025, at a city council workshop, there was some great discussion from council about a placeholder with quotes around it for funding in the CIP for 26 and 27, in which we showed earlier that funding is there. You did ask for further discussion and planning. Nothing yet determined. It needed to be a policy decision. Go look for potential sites, bring back the workshop for a deep dive, continue to collaborate with the city of Phoenix. And I'll just stop here to say, I know the electeds have done great work here. My assistant chiefs, working with Phoenix's assistant chiefs, have been working on this the last couple of years together, and myself and the fire chief from Phoenix have been having a lot of discussions on this. The reality of Phoenix and their new fire station plan has now come to bear. And then what was the feasible to reimagine Fire Station 154 or relocate was the question on April 22, 2025. So again, I go back to the bond question just to make sure we're looking through the same lens. Relocate and or modernize Fire Station 154, highlighted in yellow. This is your aerial view of where the current Fire Station 154 is at 44th Drive in Peoria in the Cactus District. Some quick stats. As we said, 44th Drive and Peoria Avenue. This is city-owned. It's 1 acre is the site of Fire Station 154. It's 0.2 miles from the Phoenix border. And again, when we talk about the methodology considerations, this polygon covers both Glendale and Phoenix, 12 square miles, fully developed, fully mature polygon. That polygon covers 100,000 people, just under 11,000 rooftops, multifamily, single-family, commercial, manufacturing, all types of rooftops. And inside the polygon, there was 7,400 incidents as an average, and in 2024, there were 68 incidents needing response inside the polygon. So again, just some background to kind of place the marker down today. In 2019, there was a decision by the then council and the city to partner with Phoenix to put a medical response unit into co-staffed at Fire Station 154, staffed with Phoenix Fire Department personnel. Over the last 6 years, we've seen some ebbs and flows of the staffing reliability from a high, low, and then back up to a high. We have to give some pause to the reality of COVID and the impacts everybody was having with staffing and those realities. There have been many collaborative conversations and relationships to stabilize the reliability of the staffing there. And out of that, you'll see in that final bullet, today, it's renamed MR70, which is in line with the Phoenix Fire Department numerical naming. They are now staffed 22 hours per day instead of what was originally 10. We're at right around 99% reliable staffing with the Phoenix personnel. And then this last bullet, there is a planned and approved Phoenix Fire Department Fire Station 93 near the Metro Center. Fortunes have changed on that side of the street, and they are moving on things. My conversation with their fire chief in July, again, 3 years to get a fire station open from the time you really say, let's do it. He and I spoke about there is some consideration that MR70 would continue to be housed at our Fire Station 154 after 93's opening, and that in his vision, he would like to see another fire station in that 39th Avenue corridor between Thunderbird, Cactus area. So he has his CIP plans and his priorities that he's working well as well. So again, back into that methodology about how you go about this work, we had some good discussion about not looking any further than 1 mile in either direction for potential sites. We found 4 square miles to look in, again, looking for the 2.5, 3 acres, public and private, the same methodology. Myself, Deputy City Manager St. John, and City Manager Phelps actually toured these sites together, drove each one. And what we found is this area is built out and dense, and you know that. This is a very mature area of the city of Glendale. There was little to no private property meeting those types of parameters. What we did identify, again, working with Jamie Chapin in the city engineering office of where we toured, was city-owned retention basins in the parks that would meet the parameters. So after looking at the two parks that we drove by, walked, discussed, we were bringing forward for continued discussion was Mission Park. That is 0.8 miles southwest of the current Fire Station 154, and it's a half mile from the city of Phoenix border. On the left, you see an aerial of the park, and on the right is their planning polygon. So what are some stats for the folks who know the area, still in the Cactus District? It's 47th Avenue and Sunny Slope. It's city-owned. It's 5 acres. Again, the 0.5 miles from the Phoenix border, covering 10 square miles, just under 100,000 covering in their planning polygon, just under 12,000 rooftops. And you look at the incidents in this polygon, 78, just under 7,900 incidents 3-year average. And last year there was 74 incidents in the polygon that would need response. You get at the top of the screen, you'll see the planning polygon for that area. The bottom left, you'll see the aerial photo again. And then the bottom right is city engineering provided just a conceptual of what a fire station could look like on that site with the remaining green and open space in the park. I put this in here for your review. I know you read your books, and just some compare and contrast of distances from key locations. Similarly, we did with 1510. But what I want to bring your attention to in this is the two polygons. And I appreciate your grace with the coloring, but you see here the blue polygon up here is the current Fire Station 154, and the gray is a polygon assigned to Mission. So you see that the Mission Park pulls it down to the south and a little bit to the west, covering more of the city of Glendale. If you just look at just the first visual eye test of what you get with just the planning polygon. Now we get into some charts and graphs, and again, I'll appreciate your grace as we go through this, as we look at shared overlap. But in this, when you look at the current location of Fire Station 154, this yellow is Fire Station 154's polygon. This blue, it would be Fire Stations 93 set at Metro Center. This aqua color, if you will, is what is called the shared overlap. That's really the area that is up for redistribution and rebalancing of calls. Currently, the city of Glendale Fire Station 154 has 4.6 square miles of shared overlap in the city of Phoenix, and it picks up about 1,800 calls. The Phoenix polygon gets into the city of Glendale about 0.6 of a mile, about 740. Again, we talked about polygons. Are they overlapped? Are they barely touching? Are they separated? We know, again, 100,000 people, 11,000 rooftops. There is demand and density in this area. No matter what we do, those calls still exist. It's about redistributing and rebalancing. The calls still exist. When you move this in your planning and shared overlap analysis, you now see that our Mission Park Fire Station would go in their shared overlap, 2.6 square miles and 1,200 incidents. And the Phoenix into Glendale maintains the same. Again, this is at the shared. Just to give you an idea, we were 4.7, moving it would make it 2.6. The calls don't change, they just get redistributed with the introduction of a new fire station for Phoenix. So bringing it to life and putting it in the computer-aided dispatch, putting it in the dispatch center, this is how it would work real time in the automatic aid system. What I want to say here is whether we're at Fire Station 154 with new 93 or a recommendation to move is accepted and new 93, we will continue to be first in to the city of Phoenix and continue to provide services to our neighbors to the east and be a premier partner. Us being a first due responder into Phoenix doesn't change with these conversations. So I'll put that there. But when you talk about the current location and with the introduction of a Phoenix asset, you see we would have 2.39 square miles in Glendale. these 2,000 incidents. That's really looking at this area. In Phoenix, we'd be at 3.7 square miles and about 1,800 incidents. That would be in this area. That's kind of what's up for grabs. That would be the impact of adding a Phoenix station. If we choose to move, again, the incidents stay, we're still responding. Now, what's in Glendale is 2.3, and what our assigned first due is in the city of Phoenix is 2.2. 2,000 incidents to 1,200 incidents. We are still running calls as first due into Phoenix. We are still a premier partner to our Phoenix Fire Department and the automatic aid system. So I use this to just kind of give you, again, the visual of what it is and what it would be. And when you do these things, what it creates is 157 to the west of 154 becomes more reliable and available because they're staying in the area. 151, their northern border, more reliable and available because they're staying in their area more often. And again, predicated on the reality of Fire Station 93 from Phoenix coming to life, this would be the impact you would see on not only the city of Glendale, but the system at all by bringing these assets. Again, we will continue to run first due into Phoenix. So with that, unless there's a question, I'll keep going. Yep.
We're moving on from 54, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I do have a question, Mayor, if I could. So I'm trying to find the slide where you said at least the assumption of the timeline for Phoenix is 3 years for them to get 93, and what our timeline is shorter than that. Is that right? Or are we gonna? Because here's the issue that I mean, we own the land. We can start any time. Phoenix has not yet acquired the property. They don't own the land yet where they want to put 93. So, you know, my concern would be if we go too fast and then we move, and then now we've left a pretty big gap in the system by moving before Phoenix has had an opportunity to stand up 93. So how are we managing that timeline?
Mayor, members of council, Vice Mayor Tom Chav, a little further along, I'll say a response to that in an item for your direction and consensus. My interest would be in with your counsel and direction and working with engineering and field operations. Our interest is to align our design and construction with Phoenix. I think the ability to strategically align this process, that both of these stations are coming out of the ground at the same time, opening their doors at similar times. One would show great collaboration between our two cities, but also would be an increase in service, not only to Glendale and Phoenix, but the system. So my interest is to continue to work with our partners and what works from a timing and assigning and the process of engineering. But my interest is to align as quick as we can with them.
Very good. That was my concern. I did verify this morning with Vice Mayor O'Brien that they are still in the negotiating stage on that parcel, and Phoenix is. So they have not, they don't even have an open escrow at this point. So just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be too far out ahead of Phoenix and create, even though it's temporary, create a problem and, you know, for a service delivery area that is really going to probably would potentially stretch the system.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've talked about it so far from the fire side, the fire impact and the polygons and all of that. But if we move the station over to Mission Park, it has impacts on the park and on the neighborhood there that we really haven't discussed. And, you know, I can imagine some neighbors may welcome it, but there may certainly be neighbors that wouldn't welcome it. I would think this would have to be something that would have to be worked through with that neighborhood, you know, quite carefully and over a period of time. If in fact, you know, that becomes a decision, part of the decision. It's not that we decide and then we go work through it. I think we need feedback from that neighborhood. And I'm sure the council member who represents that is, you know, more than capable of doing that. And I just got called on first, so I'm not trying to step on his toes. I have plenty of faith in him. And then there's also the impacts to the park. You know, we refer to it as a retention basin, but it's play area for that neighborhood. And if part of the retention area gets consumed by, the station, then we need to replace that lost retention. I would imagine there's a reason that retention basin's there. We've seen what happens in neighborhoods that don't have retention basins, and so that the retention is an important element. So if the park and retention area gets smaller, then that means the retention area probably gets deeper, and then how does that impact its ability to really serve as a park then for the neighborhood? So I know that we're trying to serve these very people that are in that neighborhood, but at the same time, we don't want to steamroll over them at all either. So those would be my concerns. We're at my district, and it's my concern because it's my city. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you very much. So I had the opportunity this past weekend to go and do some direct outreach to the neighbors and talk to them. It's really interesting because the first person that I talked to was completely against it, and the second person that I talked to was completely for it. And so as I continued my walk and my journey and talking to more and more people, there's about 60 for it and 40 against. But I had a question: have we ever put a fire station in the city of Glendale in the middle of a neighborhood with so many rooftops surrounding it?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conchas, I think as you look throughout our complete infrastructure from north to south, and as we begin to go west, on main thoroughfares, part of the community, you look at recently 153, where we sit right on the corner across from a neighborhood. We have neighbors to the back. We take the opportunity, we would be even more mindful in this, to have those community outreach meetings, to hear their concerns, bring them in to meet with Eddie, to ensure that we're connecting with the citizenry to support your constituents. All fire stations are embedded in neighborhoods to serve the community. That's why you hear me talk about a beacon of public safety and thread into the fabric. We're part of each community in each neighborhood.
Thank you. And part of the historical context that one of the neighbors gave to me is going all the way back to the Glen Lakes Golf Course in terms of the green space. And then also there is a new housing development that's on 51st Avenue in Peoria. And that used to be all green space as well. There used to be beautiful horses, and used to be a ranch, and it used to be open space, but now it's developed into a really nice development and housing. And so one of the concerns with the resident was that we're taking up all of the green space in the neighborhood. And so I had to explain to folks as well that it's not the entire park, because when I went and stood in the middle of the park, I could probably yell and nobody could hear me on the edges of the park because of how vast and how large it is. So going into sound, I had some questions from residents about, one, the sound of the trucks, and then two, the sirens as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about the sound impact that might occur in the neighborhood?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conchas, absolutely. This is a common conversation you have anytime you're opening, relocating fire stations. I'll start with, we want to be a good neighbor. I think all of the men and women in our fire department live in their own communities, their own neighborhoods, and want to be good neighbors. So we bring that to bear, number one. Number two, we do talk very intently about the reality of being a good neighbor, and when shall you use your sirens? When shall you use your lights? We have plenty of statute as to the how by statute to do that, but we are mindful. And I will give you an example. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we have to go on an emergency medical services call and it's outside the neighborhood down a mile, do we need to turn on the lights and sirens at 2 o'clock in the morning? No, we use the lights and sirens to control intersections. So we can have our lights on until we get to the intersection and then engage that sound to help clear intersections. That's how we mitigate that with our neighbors. And then just the work of firefighters, we've talked about the work day, understanding that we do to ensure we're operationally ready and ensure our equipment is ready to go in the morning. We may be out there, but again, we're mindful. We do that in the back of the station. That's about an hour, but again, we're mindful of that. There is a reality having us in the neighborhood. Not going to deny that. But we take steps to be a good neighbor.
Mayor? And then also too, has there been consideration about traveling north? So there's Sunset Elementary School there, and I know that I always get complaints from residents about the traffic that exists for drop-off and pickup. Have there been considerations about the traffic that already currently exists?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conchas, I will offer the vulnerability of not yet. We understand that roadway. We understand its impact getting north and south to the main thoroughfares. But we haven't gone into the full programming engineering until we got some definitive direction from this group. So that would be part of all the things we do, work with transportation, work with all of our collaborative partners here in the city. But no, we have not gone that deep of a dive yet.
Mayor, I just have a few more. And so in terms of the current building that exists, what would we do with that building if we went forward with this plan today?
If I understand, Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conchas, if I understand your question, what about the building? My history in this scenario has been, at the end of the day, it is a City of Glendale asset. It's a facility that is assigned to the fire department. Once the fire department is not in that, it's a city asset that could either be reassigned to police, water, park and recs, or again, it's your asset. I've seen in a past life where they put it on the market to a developer and it was sold on the private market as revenue. So I think, again, it just goes back into an asset for the city.
I would like to, for the city council to have a plan for that old building before we finally approve this, because one of the neighbors said, you know, we've had that, it's a city asset, and also we have the light structure on Peoria Avenue as well that has been constructed for the fire station, so wanting to make sure that we use all of that. And also I've been telling folks that in order to have a more modern fire station, we need more than 1 acre, so that has also been part of the messaging that I've given. And then what I will say is that there are residents that aren't happy with it, but there are a lot of residents who are, because of potential shorter response times, and because they love our fire department. And also, where would we get the funding to then redevelop the rest of the park for the community? Because I've received emails from residents about play spaces. We also just invested in a new playground equipment, which I believe is very movable, right? We can move it from one part of the park to the other if we have the funding and if that's possible. But then we've also have a new basketball court as well that we've just invested in as well. So then taking that out and putting the fire station, then moving that, it seems like we're kind of wasting money on the basketball court if we're gonna then rebuild a new one. So can you talk to us a little bit about the funding, the possibilities, and then we also discussed a community room. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conchas, I will go as far as I can with the discussions I have, and especially funding we'll see, and with Vicky Rio sitting right next to me. So specifically with the funding, we've had discussions and with John Kennedy in the room when it comes to the park and their CIP, and what we understand is there is some dollars available, but mostly for maintenance of the irrigation system. There has been preliminary conversation that it may be an opportunity to transfer some funds into the park and recs as seed money for reimagining the park and making it more of a community connectivity next to our beacon of public safety. As far as a community room in the fire station, as Mr. Garcia said earlier, our design, our chassis is meant to expand and control. If it was a matter of bringing to bear more conversation about meeting space / training room inside the fire station, it would just be part of the conversation, whether at the community level, the council level, and then down in direction for us in design.
My final comment is that I'm in full support of moving the fire station 154 to Mission Park, but there's a lot of unanswered questions that need to be had. And also, I always say to folks that if I had $1 billion, we would have a walking path, we would have workout equipment, new basketball court, some ramadas like Heroes Park does, and some state-of-the-art grills. And one of the great things is that we would take down those wall ball courts that are at Mission Park, because that's where a lot of our transient neighbors, they either house themselves or stay there, or there's also some criminal activity that happens there as well. And that is a good point, that the only thing in the CIP for Mission Park currently is $1 million for irrigation and sprinkler systems. So, Mr. Yosef, if we were to redevelop the remaining pieces of the park, where would we get that funding from?
I believe the city manager had a comment or question first before I answer that question, if it's okay.
So Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Concha, so there, obviously it's a council policy, but typically, in my experience, what would happen is if we take a portion of the land for use for the fire department, we would get an appraisal done on what the value of that land is. And then because we typically use bond funding to fund these, land acquisition is an eligible amount for that. We then could redirect that money specifically for reprogramming and reimagining that park. It's a policy decision of the council, but that's very common and would seem to me to be appropriate and would be the win-win that you look for the neighborhood, in that you give them improved public safety services, perhaps a community room, and a park that is just more than just open space.
Thank you. And Mayor, I'll just finish with this anecdote that the final door that I had was the neighbor who is directly on the corner where the fire station would be in their backyard. And thankfully, when I told them about this proposal, he was so excited, because he actually is a former firefighter himself. And so he's very excited about it and just thrilled and wants to know all the updates. So I just wanted to let you all know that Cactus District residents, although some of them are very against it, and I'll be getting their emails and I'll be getting their complaints, but a lot of folks are for it. Thank you.
Rios, you want to finish yours, and then I'm going to go to you next.
Mayor, members of the council, I think City Manager Phelps answered that question.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out, in fact, I did send you screenshots, Councilmember Conchas, of Fire Station 156, which is in my district, and you can see there's homes that literally share a fence with the fire station. And then I also sent you a screenshot of Station 155. That's not quite as close as Station 156, but and fire stations make good neighbors anyway. And we do have a good neighbor policy now too in our UDC code, where there would be no cell phone tower, or I mean the how far away a cell phone tower would have to be. In fact, I think our fire department might even have a policy itself that we're not going to put any more cell phone towers on anywhere near fire stations. But we have a good neighbor policy on city-owned assets that we tried, and I've always believed that we should be the best neighbor anybody has. So I think this is I think this is a great opportunity for our fire department to actually more evenly distribute our assets and our response, so it's not such a strain on other fire stations to try to fill in when 154's going, more into Phoenix than it is into Glendale. So I think the solution is a really good one, and I think it's going to benefit the residents once we have some concepts and ideas of what we could do with this open space, with redoing the irrigation, like you said, putting some real thought into what the neighborhood really needs, putting some lighting in there, which would be a deterrent from the things that are happening in the park that shouldn't be happening in the park. So I understand we have some work to do to actually get the neighborhood on board, and I know this. Hopefully, the city's it's not going to be just Councilmember Conchas that's talking to the neighbors, that we're going to actually have an outreach and meetings and let the neighbors know what we're doing. But I think this is, once they have a good understanding of what this is going to be, I think it's a win-win for everyone. Thank you, Mayor.
That's good.
I just had a quick question. On the picture, if you put it back up, that has, I think it's 36, where it shows the park and then, yeah, that one. Is that blue dot in the picture there, that square, is that a pool?
It's a shade structure, and underneath is the playground equipment for the
okay.
kids.
Okay, thank you. That's all I was wondering.
You have a question?
Yeah, no, just a comment on, before you move on to the next project. I mean, this was part of the presentation that I had, I guess, the most questions about. I think you did an extremely good job of answering them, concerns of the community. I think you really collaborated with everybody to make this come together. So I really appreciate all the efforts you put into it. Thank you.
Just one comment, sir. To ease the minds of a lot of your constituents that you went and spoke with, when we had a fire station put up one block from our house, and my dad was insistent that it wasn't there. It was going to be so much noise. It was going to be this and that. And he thought of every excuse in the book or every reason in the book for him. I'll say to this day, I have never heard, after the sun goes down, a fire truck drive by with the sirens on. Lights, yes, that's just to get to where they need to go through for safety. They turn the sirens on when they have to, when they get to the intersection, or they get to the major crossroads. As far as the arterial streets, 53rd, I mean, all the little avenues in between the neighborhoods, sirens at night are never on unless they absolutely have to. And then just growing up, the fire station on 55th Avenue in Orangewood, they have tennis courts, racquetball courts, a small soccer field there, or play space, I mean. And that was just always, before we even knew it was the name of a park, we always called it the fire station. We'd go play racquetball at the fire station. You would go play basketball at the fire station. And you just felt safer going to that park. It was just called the fire station. You knew exactly where it was at. Since that fire station's gone up near our house, my dad has been reluctantly but he has admitted that he's so much happier that it's right there. We had to call it for him last year when he got very, very sick at Christmas time. And a lot of in my neighborhood specifically, there's a lot of elderly people there, and they're very, very happy and appreciative that it's right there. And until you can relate to it when you need it, the fears of it's going to be too loud, it's going to be too much congestion, too much traffic, too much it works out. It just works out. There was a situation where complete power went out at one of our schools in your district, but in the elementary school I work at, and they had to send all the kids home. So imagine having to have 750 kids being picked up in like a 30-minute time frame. There was a medical emergency where a kid, for whatever reason, was wearing a hoodie in the middle of the summer, fainted, and they had to get a fire truck and an ambulance in there when there was hundreds of cars coming in to get their kids. Now that may seem like impossible. It just works out. They got that apparatus and they got the ambulance in there, and we were still able to get kids and parents, and funnily it just works out. And it may seem like an impossibility when you think about it, but in the moment when they have to, it just works out. There was no other emergency because of them coming onto the campus. There was no other emergency that happened because of that. And it's hard to get those big trucks in those little spaces, and they get it. They make it work. They get it done. So for the neighbors that you spoke with that have reservations, let me be the first to tell you that you'll be like my dad eventually, where you're going to be so happy that it's there. It's going to make your park feel safer. It's going to make your area feel safer. You're really, really going to enjoy having a fire station right there. Thank you, sir.
So quickly, thank you for all that. Transition to 19050 Fire Station 155. There is funding in this fiscal year. As you see in your chart, we'll review that again. We actually did create a charter, John Murphy on Mr. Garcia's team. We did that in July of 2025. We do see that there is an opportunity to partner with Glendale PD on their 19042, the Foothills renovation. And that's where we're looking to be nimble with the dollars appropriated into the CIP. There is some discussion about going out to market for proposals, but we do know that there are a lot of priorities, a lot of construction trying to get home right now. And again, the fire department just working with engineering and the city manager's office to make sure we're just following the CIP and where we fall in the priorities and the timing of projects right now. So there was some formal design in fiscal 2026. But we're playing that by ear, knowing that we're trying to get the big project here at City Hall done and going to be completely supportive of that project. So again, I'll finish up here. We got 4 more. I appreciate the grace. Again, this is your approved CIP. This is the funding for those 3 key projects, where dollars have been appropriated in the CIP. My interest with what you heard today and what you'll see for consensus requests are just a plan. It doesn't need to be the plan, but it's a plan of how you bring these types of projects to life. And we'll be necessarily nimble. We'll always be good partners. But again, this is your CIP and a way to bring it to life. So, request for consensus number 1, accept the recommended site with conceptual floor plan at the northwest corner of New River and Glendale to be home for future Fire Station 1510. Authorize the addition of a new fire engine to the fleet and authorize the purchase to be sequenced upon approved CIP timelines, understanding the 30-month lead time.
We have consensus?
Mayor, I would like to see the brush truck added to this.
So the question, and I'm not disagreeing with her on that. What is the lead time on a brush truck? That's got to be
30
It's the
months.
same.
It's still the same.
It's the same as the,
I would agree with her on that,
Yeah.
yes. We have a consensus to add the brush truck with what he has there, number 1?
yes.
Okay.
Number 2, start design on Fire Station 155 in fiscal year 26. You heard my comment on that. There is a charter completed, again, based on what's in the CIP. A plan would then say start design on Fire Station 154 in fiscal year 26. Again, is that a charter? Being nimble, all the priorities and work being done in the city, being mindful of that. Start construction on Fire Station 155 in 27 with an inhabit in 28. Start construction on 154 in 27, inhabit in 28. Start design on 1510 in 27. So fiscal year 27 would be a busy year again, necessarily nimble, a lot of people working hard. Opportunities to stretch things out. Start construction of Fire Station 1510 in fiscal year 28 and inhabit sometime in fiscal year 29. But the bottom bullet, Council, is kind of the pieces. Work with budget to confirm, update the funding packages, and amend the CIP in the upcoming budget sessions as necessary. Once we get everybody and everything out and everything laid out, really put it to meet your interests moving forward.
Okay. So you have discussion on what he just proposing?
Yes, I did.
Yes, Mayor. So in terms of Station 154 and the funding, one clarifying question I have is how many trucks are we anticipating for Fire Station 154? And would there in the future ever need to be a second truck?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conscious, as you know, 154 exists. We have the staffing for that apparatus. We have the apparatus. We continue to look at our performance metrics of availability, reliability, unit hour utilization, and the number of calls for triggers. So it would be part of any conversation that if we needed to add additional services, we would bring forward a data-driven recommendation as a supplemental when the time came. But today our interest is the assets exist. They would just move into a new station.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question on Fire Station 1510. You have here for start design in 27. Is that what the 3 million is for on the CIP? That sheet there, yeah.
I again, going back into how the CIP was approved and the funding assigned in there, I'd look to Eddie as to if that meets his interest or the city manager's office of their intent for the funding in that year, understanding what it usually costs to get out to contract and hire an architect for this type of work.
Okay. I would have preferred to have it start in 2026, but not much I can do about that.
Mr. Phelps?
Mayor, members of council, so just I want to call out on recommendation number 2 is that this is different than what's in the current adopted CIP, the schedule about constructing 155 and being open and habitating that in 28. So we can start moving forward to that, but that's an acceleration based on what the current adopted CIP is at. Recommendation could be have this discussion as part of your updating of your CIP with your new FY26 budget which means we may have to shift some dollars around. And then as Chief Freeberg said, the other broader question is that from an organizational capacity to deliver projects on time and within scope, which we've got a great track record on, what we need to do then is align with our project team these recommendations. And so there likely will be some changes going forward in terms of the exact timeline, because we want to make sure we do is that we don't stretch out our capacity to be able to deliver the projects that are there. But in this particular case, just want to say real clearly that the recommendation is in contrast to the current adopted CIP, but you obviously have plenty of opportunity to modify either the recommendation or the CIP going forward.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Phelps, off the top of your head, do you know what, at least I'm sure somebody's looked at the numbers and looked at the project, so something's been pushed back into later years. So off the top of your head, what's been pushed back in order to accommodate this recommendation?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, I don't have an answer for that right now, and so we can certainly follow up from today. We'll get a memo out on that and give you a picture on that, but I'm not sure yet what was moved around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of making the decision is what are we delaying in order to do this? That's something I've always want to know is, I mean, I think this is a great idea, but when what's being postponed is an abstract idea, it makes it difficult for me to say I'm okay with it. So I'd like to have that. I wish that we had it today. Mayor, I do, while I have the floor, I have a question. I'm looking at the summary by project, the public safety. Have those changes been made already in the slide? You have a separate slide in here. You have this summary. You show $5.6 million carryover for Station 153. I'm assuming that's been spent. Is that right? Or was there additional money left over for 153?
Mayor, members of the council, that number was what was budgeted, and it probably has been adjusted, but I don't have that new number in my brain at this time. I can't tell you. So we'd have to go back and get back with you on that as well.
Okay. So I guess my question is the slide that you provided that shows the summary by project, has that shift already been made in the slide that you've provided us? Of something's been pushed back and these recommendations have been moved forward, or is this as it is?
Mayor, members of the council, these numbers, to the best of my knowledge, are the ones that are currently in the budget book.
Okay.
So these have not been shifted, and as both Mr. Phelps and Mr. Freeberg have said, we'll have to do that as part of the upcoming budget process and look at what can be shifted forward, what can be shifted back, and the timing of those various items, and then bring that back to you.
Okay, so Mayor, if I could continue. So for me anyway, when this is presented to us, actually, when we start, looking at the CIP, I would like that shift, whatever that is, to be part of the presentation. So we have a good understanding of how, what the priorities are. I mean, this obviously is a priority for the council, but not knowing what else was already said was a priority, I think that, so when we get to the budget, hopefully that information will be given to us. And then I have one last question on this summary by project slide. There's a project 26009, firing range redesign for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. What is that project? Is that a new project? Here he comes.
Is it this one?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, this past calendar year, we discovered that some of our rounds fired at our range were getting onto the MRF campus and creating some hazard for the employees at the MRF. So we built a project very quickly out of the grip stick to reconstruct and make safe those ranges that we use. That's this project.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with the other idea of a whole separate firing range, is this?
Correct.
Okay.
This is our current outdoor range. Some some modifications to make it more safe.
But this is a new project that was not in the CIP previously?
I believe it was in Mayor, Vice Mayor, I believe it was in the Gripstick CIP, but I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, I'll look for it. Okay, thank you. That answers my questions, Mayor.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, so I'm going to be maybe more clear, and I apologize. So the amount of money that's with these three projects, both 154, 155, and 151.0, is a total of about $36 million. That's enough money, we believe, to do those projects. It's just about the timing. So we didn't pull something off to accelerate it up. If you'll notice in the presentation slide that's right here is that we show that, for example, for Fire Station 54, that they've got in FY 26 $5 million. Well, there's no way we'll be prepared to expend $5 million in FY 26. We may be under construction, we may be spending it, but these dollars tend to flow depending on when you stop and start. So want to be clear, nothing was canceled because of the recommendations that are here. It's really about the timing of the recommendation is inconsistent with the CIP.
Right.
I hope that helps out.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, to respond to that, I am understanding we're not canceling anything, but we're delaying. And so if it's a capacity issue, I would want to be assured that the capacity, we wouldn't exceed the amount of capacity we would need to move forward with the forensics lab, which I think is a high priority of the council. So for me, I want to understand that we're not saying, okay, well, now we're not going to have the capacity anymore to move ahead with the forensics lab. I think we've established that that's a priority of the council to get that done. So I understand that there's a funding ebb and flow of how much, managing our debt and also of managing the workload for Mr. Garcia and the city staff that has to manage these projects. So I would just want to make sure I have a good understanding of we're not leapfrogging something that's already a council priority. That's all.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, you're correct. There's really two kinds of capacity. There's the financial capacity to do the projects, and then there's the delivery capacity, organizational capacity to deliver those. So we'll come back with more detail there. We've got a great team. They, as you know, with the DCRP and the major things that are going on, we've been managing multiple large projects over the last several years. So we're confident we can continue that momentum, but I think there does need to be some additional discussion and dialogue to make sure then that what we talk about that's a fundable in the CIP also is then also deliverable, aligned with the priorities of the council.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say that this presentation today has been extremely helpful, and it illustrates how far we've come over the last few years in this conversation about our fire stations. We all appreciate how important they are, but it's a dance, and I'm really pleased at the point that we're at today. I think that we're mostly all on the same page and looking at the same direction and timelines. I am a little bit concerned about tinkering, I guess, with the CIP. That'll be the first part of what we undertake in our budget process, which is just around the corner. So if it wouldn't be detrimental to your operation and timeline and vision that we wait to finalize our thoughts on this till we do the CIP, I would rather do that. But if it is detrimental to the vision and the pace that you want to work at, then please let me know and I might reconsider.
Mayor, members of council, Councilwoman Turner, I'll take full responsibility and be vulnerable of my slide being misaligned. So I'll take full ownership of that. I'm not looking to get conflicted with the CIP as approved by you folks or the city manager. So that is me putting that fiscal year too far forward. So I'll own that part. I'm here to support your direction and policy and the city manager's direction and policy. It's a plan that we can be nimble with, understanding all the priorities here in the city.
Mayor, members of the council, so I'd like to maybe reframe the recommendation rather than to put the entire recommendation, because we do want to stay on track with Station 154 and 15110. Really, this discussion is about the timing of 155 update. And so maybe we could modify the recommendation to go forward with the published schedule that is recommended in number 2, with the exception, and we need to come back and put a little bit more discussion around the timing of the project for 155. But the other two, I think, are critical to keep this on the path moving forward. So maybe just do a modified recommendation, Councilmember Turner, if that would work for you.
I could support that, thank you.
Mayor? So, Mr. Phelps, so if 154 and 1510 are already, these recommendations are in alignment with the current CIP then, is that what you're saying? Okay, all right, thank you. I'm good with that too.
Mayor, I just have a clarifying question as a new council member. We discussed the CIP during the budget process. I wanted to ask if the council could discuss the CIP before that.
Can do.
Are you asking me,
If
sir?
we can discuss the CIP before the budget process in spring? That's my question.
We'll definitely be doing that.
Answer is yes? Okay.
Mr. Phelps?
Mayor, members of council, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to putting the CIP discussion together, but yes, I mean, each year we've really spent more time and we've accelerated it in the budget cycle. For example, we know the city is going out with several bond questions. I mean, that impacts the part of the CIP as well. So what I would just say, we'll note that the council would like to see as reasonably possible to get this discussion going early on. But there are some constraints and some issues that make it impossible to do it next month, for example, and to have something substantive.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, I partially in agreement with Councilman Conchas. I would like to be able to have numbers concerning some of the projects before we discuss or actually go into the budget. I'm aware of the CIP and these numbers here, the projections of 27 and 28 for the fire station in my district. But for the next coming budget year, and I realize you're saying that it's a lot of work, but I think it would be important for us council members to be able to have some of these numbers ahead of time.
Well, just so I'm clear what everybody wants, is everybody in agreement with Mr. Phelps' recommendation on the two, and then 155 be in discussion later?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a consensus on that? Okay, so, and then the last thing I heard was that we have a better discussion of our CIP and how that affects 155 and future, and we can certainly ask for a special workshop. We have to get with the city to find out how much time they need to make that happen. So everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Chief, what else you need?
Last one, thank you. Accept the recommended site at Mission Park for the relocation of Fire Station 154 to include use of floor plan 153 as a start for design process, and work to reasonably align our design and construction timelines with construction of Phoenix Fire Station 93.
Consensus?
Mayor, and that would include a pretty big community outreach portion of the project, right? With the city. I mean, we're not going to expect Councilmember Conchas to be the only one out there notifying the neighbors about what's happening. So like a community meeting or something like that, I would hope that would be part of the process.
Mayor, members of council, Vice Mayor Tomachoff, absolutely.
Okay, I
Mayor.
support that.
Well, I and maybe the rest agree that that would be a wise move. If we decide today that that's what we're doing, then we're going to the neighborhood after the decision's been made and asking for their input and alignment. And I think if we can hold off on consensus number 3 for 30 or 60 days, it's more respectful to go to the neighborhood and explain what the goal is and how we intend to achieve it, get their input, and then come back and decide where we are on consensus number 3.
I think I disagree with you only for the fact that if we don't have a consensus, then we really can't go ask them. We at least have to have a direction that we think that we're going, and then talk with the neighborhood and see if we have to alter that or not, would be my thought.
So interesting enough, I agree with both of you. I think that we should actually accept the recommendation today, but tonight on the voting meeting, we have the new guidelines that we can't bring anything up as a council item of special interest for a year and a half. So I'm wondering if we pass that tonight, if we're going to be able to bring this Mission Park relocation up again.
Mayor, members of council, let me help a little bit. What we're really doing is giving a consensus for the team to begin all of the various steps. There will be numerous opportunities for this council to actually take a vote in public on funding of design and construction. I mean, those are all really large discussion items, and so nothing says it because you've given direction for them to pursue 154 today. If we run into some issues that we're not aware of, we run into community opposition, we find a better site, we would always be able to come back and have re-engage with the council. This is really more just to make sure that we're expending staff time and resources pursuing a project, recognizing there's going to be numerous points where this council will have to take official action before it becomes an actual project.
Good. Okay. You have what you need?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Chief, I do want to follow up with one thought. We've had a lot of presentations from a lot of people on a lot of different things. Yours has been more detailed, and just your experience level gives me a huge amount of assurances. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, very good. Next up, City Manager's Report.
And Mayor, thank you for those comments. I think we are certainly very fortunate. In my municipal career, which has run a few years, I don't think I've come across somebody more knowledgeable on the fire side in terms of operations, how to lead an organization, how to create the culture, than Chief Freeberg. And so I think he's going to be a tremendous asset, and you should have much confidence moving forward with the ability to deliver really a great fire system into the future. But thank you for those comments. With that, I'll roll my, my video report. Hello, everyone. Well, fall is here, and so are some exciting city updates. We were bursting with community pride at an event when one of our Glendale parks got a new name. The 8-acre park near North 51st and West Olive Avenues is in the neighborhood where legendary Phoenix Suns broadcaster Al McCoy lived for more than 50 years. The event officially named the park as Al McCoy Memorial Park, and there is now a permanent sign with McCoy's photo and biography on it. The morning celebration included the McCoy family, former Phoenix Suns basketball players, and even the Suns gorilla. Almost 70 students from Glendale's own Copper Canyon High School brought terrific energy. The school sent their marching band, pom, and cheerleaders, as well as their boys and girls basketball teams. Former Suns player and current broadcaster Eddie Johnson shot the ceremonial first basket using an NCAA Women's Final Four basketball on a beautifully refurbished court. Named Shazam Court after one of McCoy's favorite broadcast booth sayings, the refurbished court was made possible thanks to a partnership between the city and the Phoenix Suns and Mercury Foundation. Glendale police have a new state-of-the-art facility to safely store and process evidence. Evidence used to be spread across multiple sites with limited space. Now everything is centralized, making it easier to track, store, and return items when needed. The building also has an interim forensic lab, allowing staff to process evidence quickly and effectively. Voters approved funding for the facility in the 2023 bond election. Jenny Durda, our Director of Organizational Performance, is receiving national recognition for using data to make our city services even better. What Works Cities, an innovative program created by Bloomberg Philanthropies, has named Jenny a data champion. She's one of just 11 leaders across the country selected. This honor celebrates leaders who use data to make government smarter, faster, and more transparent. Congratulations to Jenny and to her entire team at Organizational Performance. A new Tesla Collision Center is now open near Luke Air Force Base in Glendale. The state-of-the-art facility will elevate electric vehicle repair services in the West Valley. This expansion follows the company's initial investment in 2021 when it opened a combined Tesla store, service, and delivery center at 93rd and Glendale Avenue. I'm honored to officially welcome our new city judge, Chad Haywood. He's a familiar face in Glendale. He served as Glendale's court hearing officer since January and was appointed as a judge pro tem last year. He graduated from ASU's Sandra Day O'Connor's College of Law and has worked as both a private attorney, a deputy county attorney, handling felony and DUI trials. He's passionate about Glendale Mental Health Court, which helps people with mental illnesses or development disabilities work through their cases with care and support. Volunteers rolled up their sleeves to help beautify a neighborhood in Glendale's Ocotillo district. They spent the day doing a variety of landscaping projects as part of Community Services' Residential Landscape Improvement Program. Neighbors and volunteers teamed up to take on projects several times a year. They focus on areas identified through census data and neighborhoods with code concerns. The goal is to reduce code violations and keep neighborhoods looking their best. Finally, we've saved the biggest news for last. The City of Glendale has been named a 2025 Best Places to Work finalist by the Phoenix Business Journal. Most noteworthy, we were the only city recognized among 96 businesses and nonprofits across the valley. This honor celebrates our amazing employees who bring dedication, teamwork, and passion each and every day as we serve our community. From Gratitude Month, employee recognition programs, tuition reimbursement, and innovative workplace programs, Glendale is committed to being a place that is employee-friendly and a place where our staff can thrive. Thank you to our entire team for making Glendale shine. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with more updates soon.
Mr. Bailey.
No report, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is council item special interest. Mr. Baldenegro, have you any?
None today, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Council.
None today, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Guzman.
None today, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Milner.
Nothing today.
Mr. Turner.
Nothing today.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Oh, Mayor, I'm going to break the code. I do have one. I'd like to have a presentation, or I guess see if there's a consensus to have a presentation on what the plans are for the vacant buildings once we move back into City Hall. I know I've brought that up during the DCRP presentations, but I've never made it official item of council interest. But I think it's something the council should be included in the discussion on what's going to happen to those vacant buildings. So that is my item of interest, Mayor.
I would like to be added to that.
Okay. I have nothing to add to that, so can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, vote nay. You guys have it, do have it. Motion. We're in executive session. Thank you.